What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ask a CISSP. So this is the Thursday episode of The Other Side of the Firewall, where we talk to those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, people who are, entrepreneurs within the industry and, making waves and what have you. So today I have a very special guest. So I've been kind of talking this up for a few days now. So depending on when you're watching or seeing this or listening to this, right? Because we're available on every platform you can think of when it comes to audio. We're also on YouTube, Repton Tech, and now 99.1 FM. So you have, I don't know how you're listening, but I greatly appreciate you listening regardless. So without further ado, if I can have you introduce yourself and then give us a little bit of your background before we roll into your experience.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan, for having me here. My name is Lynn Dohm, and I'm Women in Cybersecurity Executive Director. And so we often go by our acronym, and it's spelled WiCYS, pronounced WiCyS, like we sisters, because that's exactly what we are. We're a global cyber sisterhood. So our mission is to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. We've been a 501c3 member-based nonprofit now since 2018. And we have over 10,650 members with representation in 99 countries. In addition to that, we have 71 professional affiliates. So I represent the global organization. Our professional affiliates are cybersecurity professionals. They have started their own mini WiCyS organization. They're all around the world. And then in addition to that, we also have 304 student chapters. So we continue to create accessibility and opportunities for women to not only get into cybersecurity, but advance in their careers because of it. And so it's a great honor to be able to have this conversation with you, Ryan. I know it's going to be a nice, lively one, and we're going to get to some really good information for the audience to share and learn.
Absolutely. So thank you for taking the time to come on the show. So the Other Side of the Firewall was originally started because I was in the military at the time, and being active duty and cyber and IT in general is a melting pot, right? But when I talked to my friends who had left the military, they were like, it's not like that out here. So when I started to have these conversations with people, it led to me asking, like, why did you start your journey? Why did you break into, whether it be IT or something adjacent into cybersecurity? And what, kind of motivates you? Where's the passion come from? So in your case, I mean, you're leading a humongous organization, right? Like you said, you have multiple chapters, a global presence. But where did you start at? Like, what was your cybersecurity origin story or your IT origin story?
So I was one of those people that came in. Cybersecurity just kind of stumbled in front of me. So I entered into this workforce initiative, working on an NSF, a National Science Foundation funded grant here in the Chicagoland area. And that grant was to train up the next generation of the cybersecurity workforce. And that was really interesting to me. But where I landed in cybersecurity is really focusing all my efforts on building out resources for diverse talent to get into cybersecurity, because we're at such a critical workforce shortage. And we realized many years ago, 16, 17 years ago, that there wasn't any clear pathways into cybersecurity. So it got very confusing. And then in addition to that, there wasn't a lot of resources for underrepresented individuals. So I landed on that workforce development and initiative area. And for the past 5 years, I've been working on focusing primarily on women in cybersecurity. But what got me, Ryan, is that here I was just loving the cybersecurity space I was working with and enjoying all the passion and the commitment that folks had into it, the way that they were able to hyper focus and really tune into what they were focusing on and solve problems and champion one another through this space. And yet there is this workforce shortage, and there still is this workforce shortage. I mean, many years ago, it was a million unfilled jobs. Now it's 4.8 million unfilled jobs. And so what gives here? Cybersecurity is such a lucrative career for so many individuals. And so by me shifting over my attention to the WiCyS organization in 2018, when it became a nonprofit, and then 2019 is when I became an executive director, it's very exciting for me to be able to merge my passion and my career into one and provide and simplify the process for underrepresented and underserved individuals to get into the cybersecurity workforce. And it's been life-changing for so many.
Right.
What we do is we have many different programming efforts, and some of our signature programs are finding the hidden talent, seeking out individuals that might not necessarily understand how cybersecurity could serve them as a career choice, and then take them from zero into cybersecurity and include the career placement services, and so that they could get on their way in this lucrative space. But every once in a while within WiCyS, we also assess our members. And we threw out a question a few months ago of why did you get into cybersecurity? What resonated with you that
Right.
got you here? And it really, and within a few days, we had over 2,400
Oh, wow.
acknowledge
Okay.
and respond to that question. We have a very thriving, engaging community. And so they're always willing to share their knowledge and strengths and insights with others. And what it boiled down to was just such a common theme: being mission focused, having a rewarding career, making a difference in the world, solving crime, fighting the bad guys, protecting others, protecting
Right.
families, organizations, companies they belong to. And those are the common themes that we always receive when we're like, why cybersecurity? What made you get into it? It boils down to that mission and that passion and that puzzle solving or problem solving and enjoying puzzles and really enjoying that space. And so it's a great honor for me to be always working in this space and being surrounded by so many energetic individuals that are happy to be here.
It's amazing that you have such an engaged community, because I know for a fact, right? If people are passionate, they will definitely give you feedback, whether it be positive or negative. But everyone has that survey monkey thing that comes in through work. You're just like, not again. Right. It was the same thing when I was in the military. It would be a task, right? Like I went from being an airman who reluctantly didn't want to fill it out to being, an NCO or non-commissioned officer who had to kind of push for it. Like, I can't make you take the survey, but we can't make it better.
And
We
let's
can't,
hear
yeah,
more.
yeah,
Yeah.
we need your feedback. So it's good to see that you have such an engaged community who they want to give you feedback. They want to, help the future them, right? The person who's trying to come in and break into cybersecurity. So so with that being said, what was your biggest hurdle or challenge when it came into the crossing over into WiCyS and kind of working at the executive level? Was it just a natural progression, or were there some things where you're like, okay, this is a little bit different, or these are things I didn't quite see being challenges when I took the position?
Well, coming over onto the nonprofit side and being in the nonprofit executive director space is just a little different of experience in general, because you're responsible for funding the organization. And then also you're responsible for not only growing it in the membership, but the programming efforts. And a primary goal or responsibility that I have is listening to the community, understanding their needs, looking at the workplace right now and the workforce, and then building programs that make sense for our employer partners. So that part is always evolving. The space is always changing. There's always so many different things in the climate that really alters and shifts, whether there's various tech layoffs or there's, various workforce demands, other things that also have been happening, recently that contribute to many different variables within the workforce.
Right.
So it's nice to be in a nimble space where we could be very flexible and we could always continually to understand the needs of our audience and our community, and then build out programming efforts that make sense with their employer partners. That, I guess, it took me by surprise on how much time it was going to take for that, but also having the flexibility to be able to shift. Because once we have one idea, to be sure that we could
Right.
alter that depending on our time. So I became executive director October 1st of 2019. And what happened in 2020? There was no plan. There was no executive director's playbook for pandemic. And so what happened for us is it allowed me and our team to kind of reduce their own barriers and walls we had up of what our vision was for the future, and to be able to take down those walls of in-person activities and events and really get ourselves out there in the virtual space. And that was a very strong contributing factor for us to grow internationally. That's when we got a lot of international engagement. That's when our community was very supportive and championed one another on social media. We received a lot of media attention. We received a lot of attention from other areas, and we started building out more virtual programming efforts that are either taking individuals from early career into more mid-career roles or mid-career into senior roles. And so we've opened that up internationally, and our growth really happened organically from there. So it was nice. But my story to get into WiCyS is that I was searching for that community and camaraderie in my career for many, many years. And I was working in a support capacity for the WiCyS organization. And I attended my first conference in 2018 when the conference was here in Chicago. And it was the first time in my life, even though I was searching so hard to become a part of an association or an organization where I really had the
Right.
really rich conversation in cybersecurity, and I was able to build up my network. And it was right in front of me the whole time. The time that I went to the WiCyS conference, and the table that I was sitting at created incredible career advancement for the next year and a half. And
Oh, that's
it
amazing.
was a year and a half later that our founder, Dr. Suresh, then messaged me asking me if I would consider applying for the executive director role. And again, I thought, when else can I merge my passion to my career? And so I
Right.
applied for that position, and it's been incredible ever since, not only to be a part of the WiCyS growth, but be a part of the growing efforts of the workforce just in general.
And I like how the organization is pretty much from cradle to grave, right? You're helping people to come in, receive training, kind of figure out who or what they want to be within the space, because cybersecurity is so broad, right? And then from there, you said you have employer partners. So you're able to, kind of get people into those seats. So I know the tech layoffs were pretty big, and they did impact us a lot when it came to just seeing DE&I kind of drop off for a certain extent, and then as well as just very large companies kind of shuttering or shedding their workforce, whether it be IT, cybersecurity, so on and so forth. Have you seen a resurgence, or did it kind of level off for you guys, or what was kind of the experience coming off of the big tech layoff wave?
Where it definitely was, every company that we work with has a different set of priorities. And because WiCyS aligns with the Cybersecurity Workforce Initiative, and that we're not a women's only organization, that we're a community comprised of women, men, non-binary individuals, allies, and advocates that are all concerned about the critical workforce shortage. We're concerned about the security of our companies, our families, the organizations that we belong to. What we were experiencing is that there was just a different shift in priorities. And either if they were very heavy on hiring many years ago, then it shifted into a very strong focus on retention. And so WiCyS provides that community-based effort, that networking, and how we partner with our employer partners. We have over 60 strategic partners that fund and support us in a year-round engagement. And they're companies of all sizes, and we have many different tiers of partners as well. But these companies are committed into investing in the most valuable and expensive asset in cybersecurity, and that's its people. And so
Absolutely.
they lean in on WiCyS to be able to not only create easier pathways and accessibilities for individuals so that we can invest in more women getting into cybersecurity, but advancing in their careers. And so when it came to the tech layoffs and how things were adjusting there, it was unsettling, but the priorities of companies shifted. And then they really came to us with this concern of, we value and appreciate the diverse talent that we have on our teams.
Right.
How can we partner with WiCyS to ensure that that retention remains? And while we're on a hiring freeze at this very moment, we want to ensure that there is no attrition of our incredible teams that we have. And so even our studies, our very own studies show, like our State of Inclusion Benchmark report, it's available on our website for everyone to see. It's just a 5-page executive summary, and it has fascinating information about what is the state of inclusion for women in cybersecurity. But one thing that came out of that report that we weren't even looking for when we were doing the data and the research, and the chief scientist from Malaria that discovered this was very enthusiastic, because those that participate in the State of Inclusion Benchmark report that identified it as employees of WiCyS strategic partners, they had significantly less experiences of exclusion and they had higher
Great.
levels of satisfaction. Because even though they might not have the representation that they would like to see on their teams, they knew their employer was invested in them and was creating the community, the resources, the mentoring, the professional development, all that around them. And by partnering with WiCyS, we were able to supply that within their space that doesn't already have that representation.
Right.
And we saw the evidence that it increases higher levels of satisfaction and it decreases experiences of exclusion for those employer partners. So we were really happy to have that data and to be able to share and showcase that with others.
That's incredible, because I think that's what's really lacking in the broader sense of corporations, right? There's that understanding or that empathy. Like, I want you to stay. I want you to feel fulfilled in your work, and that's a boon for the company, because you're able to retain talent. Hopefully promote internally, because it's very costly, to have to find another worker to then level them up, skill them up, and really promote them internally as well. So that's a great initiative, as well as you have the data to back it up, right? I just wish the rest of the the world would do the same, right?
And it's hard to be what you cannot see. And so when
Very
you
true.
have the attrition, you don't have the retention of the representation of women in the workforce. And then if you have hiring practices and you bring in diverse talent in their early career and they don't see leaders that look like them, they don't feel like there's any place for them up at the top. So eventually the turnaround is always going to continue to happen. And so that's why WiCyS has put a lot of time and attention into focusing on, because our mission is to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity, we really have to look at, we could recruit all we want, but if we can't retain and advance women in cybersecurity, then we have to peel back the layers and really look at core of the issue. And so within our organization, we're always focusing on what is that inclusive workforce? What does that look like? Because when you peel back the layers and you look at cultivating a culture of inclusion, diversity will expand from that point. But it's really getting more talented individuals. And for us, our focus is on women in cybersecurity in that mid-career into that senior and executive space.
How is that senior level and executive mentorship, so to speak, right? That person, it's in WiCyS, they make it up to those C-suite senior level positions, and then they're able to provide mentorship, allyship, a hand up, things of that nature. How has that been working out with the organization? Is that helping with the isolationism, excuse me, as well as the retention?
Yeah, so we're seeing a great progress within the organization. We have an incredible mentor-mentee program where we designed and developed a curriculum to upskill and uplevel women no matter where they're at their career, preparing them for their next level of advancement. We have a lot of senior professionals that are mentors in that space. But, women in cybersecurity, we started in 2014, originally as a conference. Our founder
Right.
is Dr. Ambereen Siraj, and she was at Tennessee Tech University at the time. She reached out to National Science Foundation. They awarded her $70,000 to start the first ever Women in Cybersecurity conference. But the reason why is because at that time, it said, ISC2 came out saying that women only represented 11% of the workforce. Well, Dr. Siraj was surprised it was even 11%. She wasn't, or was surprised it was 11%. She wasn't seeing even 11% in any of her circles of
Right.
industry, academia, or government. And so her idea was, wow, these women exist out there. Let's bring them together in a technical space so we could learn and grow together. But what's unique about WiCyS is that because our mission is to recruit, retain, and advance, for every regular registrant at the conference, we were able to give out a scholarship. So while industry
That's incredible.
professionals were coming to WiCyS for their professional development, we pay it forward by providing a scholarship to bring in that next generation. So while women are rising, we're paying it forward and we're creating that cycle. So now 11 years later, we're really able to see the progress. We're able to see it within our own community. You're able to hear about it on LinkedIn and on, all sorts of social media platforms. Women are out there all the time sharing their WiCyS experience and how it helped elevated them. But in the workforce, we became a nonprofit because in 2018, it was still saying that women were only representing 11%. And we thought, okay, we have to become a nonprofit to do more about it and build up various programming efforts. And so we were happy in 2019 when the data then shifted and women represented roughly between 20 to 24% in the
Right.
cybersecurity workforce. But unfortunately, COVID kind of uprooted that in some capacity, and now women still remain at that 20 to 24%. We have not seen any progress in women in cybersecurity in the workforce with the data that ISC2 is reporting.
Right.
Now, within our community, we're seeing it far and wide. We're seeing just a really growing community that it just completely champions one another, and we continue to put out programming efforts that are reaching all women, no matter where they're at their career, to ensure that they have everything that they need for their advancement.
No, that's brilliant. And when I started the podcast, it was around that 24, 25%. So like you're able to see the growth, right? You're able to see like, okay, we started with roughly 11 and now we've almost doubled or more than doubled, and we're still working towards it. So when I initially saw the stats, not having that experience, right? Again, the military is a melting pot. It's a little bit different. Like, it's still very much disproportionate, don't get me wrong. But when I saw the 24%, I was like, women make up more than half the population. I was like, why is this so woefully low? So it's amazing to see that growth. Like, I didn't know that you started at 11, right? So like that's humongous to, more than double, obviously we're still not where we should be. It should be a representation of the population, in my opinion, right? Like, so women should make up more than half of cybersecurity because you make more than half of the population. But to see that growth is astonishing. So hopefully after all of the churn, right? Like coming out of COVID, we're coming out of the great tech layoff wave.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're seeing a uptick in that too. I had quite a few partner meetings even today where they're saying that they're projected to hire, big hiring coming up
Great.
in their teams for fiscal year 25. And so they're partnering with WiCyS to help make that happen and be the partners for them, because it's always also about meeting the community where the community is at. And so that's what WiCyS is able to do. I mean, through our strategic partnership, they have access to our job board. We have tons of resumes there. All our members could upload their resumes there. All our strategic partners can recruit from that all year round, in addition to, having access to all our various programming efforts. But, when it comes to that hiring and to be able to meet the community where the community is at, WiCyS is able to be that catalyst to help make that happen.
It's great to have you guys able there to champion, right? To say, hey, this is the effort that is currently going on, and we have not only the talent but also the resources to help bring people where they need to be at, like you said, for the community, to meet the community where it's currently at. With that being said, are there any partnerships or anything like that? So when I look at the community, right, I talked to Black Cybersecurity, WiCyS. I talked to Rebecca Skeet from Black Girls Hack. She's COO over there. And I see a lot of great organizations. Are you guys able to kind of, synergize those efforts? And if so, what initiatives have taken place that we or going to take place that we can kind of talk about on the podcast as well?
We're all peers in the space. And so with WiCyS being a nonprofit really focusing on that women in cybersecurity, we're partnering with all organizations that are around us to be able to amplify the message, because we're all serving the community in a different capacity. So Cybersecurity we partnered with Cybersecurity before they became Cybersecurity, when they were ICMCP, International Consortium of Cybersecurity Minority Professionals. And they came around in 2014, just when WiCyS was coming around as well. So we have always contributed and done partnering programming efforts the best that we could. And we're always out there amplifying our messages through various podcasts and through call for participations and presenting at RSA together and being on various panels together. So a lot of our community members are also community members of many other nonprofit organizations as well. And so WiCyS and Latinas in Cybersecurity, and WiCyS has a Latinas in Cybersecurity professional affiliate as well. They have all partnered together on various programming efforts on site during the WiCyS conference, really gathering the community in many different capacities. And then in addition to that, we have community collaborations that we've worked with Blacks in Cyber, Black Girls in Cyber, and Black Girls Hack, and Women's Society of Cyber Jitsu, all of those nonprofits that are doing such good work. So it's amazing to be able to work in this space. And one of my favorite parts of working in this space is being with those partners and brainstorming ideas and working together, discussing about what our challenges are and how we could distinctly navigate through them.
Right.
Because each of our own nonprofits have very distinct challenges too.
Absolutely. And I love the overlapping of efforts, because just like we say, diversity within cybersecurity will help us to figure out those future problems, right? To have someone of diverse culture, ethnicity, neural diversity, so on and so forth, just brings a lot to the table. So that way we can figure out, tomorrow's problems as opposed to where we're currently situated. So I'm glad to see that there is that overlap. When it comes to the conferences, so you guys grew out of conferences, right? Now you're at, this big global presence. Do you still have the conferences in order to bring people in? And if so, what is the frequency of those?
Yeah, so our conferences are signature programming effort. We started as one, then we became a nonprofit in 2018, but the conference remained a very important initiative. It's one of many initiatives. We have many signature programming efforts now. We have our security training scholarship, and we raise a lot of funding in order to execute in that capacity. We have our mentor-mentee program. We have all sorts of different programming efforts. Each and every month, we're rolling out various programming efforts for early career, mid-career, even executive cybersecurity exercises that we partner with SANS Institute. to do at that senior and executive level as well. But our conference comes out once a year, and so our next conference is April 2nd through the 5th in Dallas, Texas. We're going to be at the Gaylord Texan out there. And then what's new for 2025 is that we were able to extend the conference by a day. So normally it's a 2-day conference with a 1-day pre-conference day. For 2025, it's a 3-day conference with an extra pre-conference day. So we're excited about that. We're able to extend the career fair by an extra
Right.
half day as well. And so it's a big hiring event in order for companies to really get in front and get access to all the resumes, and then
Right.
they hire and offer jobs on the spot at the WiCyS conference. But what also is included with the conference is a virtual conference the following week. So in addition to the in-person event, we have the virtual conference experience the following week, where it's a day and a half of conference sessions, and then it's a half day of an international career fair, and then also our regular traditional career fair as well. So that comes up each and every year. Right now, our strategy for growth is, and our projections in the future is going international with that conference. We have such a large community all around the world, and we have to ensure that we continue to engage them. So I've been making a great effort of going to places like UK and Canada and Australia, and being sure that I'm able to meet with all our professional affiliates that are boots on the ground, running with their own WiCyS organization within the specific regions. But it's time for our organization, at 6 years in it being a nonprofit, to continue holding our existing conference experience,
Right.
but then also go into the international space with that conference too. So we're ready for it. We have our 5-year strategic plan built out. We have a very strong sustainability and scalable model as our business plan, and we're looking forward to what the future will hold for us.
No, absolutely. And you are definitely very well organized. So the PM part of my brain is just like, this is great, right? It's releasing endorphins. I like to hear all of the efforts you have, how you're able to coordinate those efforts. And then obviously, like when you said you had the 5-year plan, I'm like, oh man, that's great. That's like music to my ears.
Right. You should see the metrics, the board that we've built out to track all our KPIs. If that a 5-year strategic plan makes you geek out, you would love our dashboard for KPIs and how we track our KPIs and how do we measure success in us as growing organizations. So that's a really fun, creative space to be of. Where's the gaps? What kind of programming effort is going to fill that gap? Well, how do we define success with that programming effort? What kind of impact do we want to
Right.
make? What kind of data needs to be gathered? And then measuring that off of our dashboard. It's super exciting. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things to look at each and every day is a dashboard of KPIs. Is that not nerdy or what? But I love it. I'm very proud of the organization to be where it's at in the model of maturity. I wasn't the first full-time employee, but I was the only full-time employee when I came on as executive director in 2019. And then in 2020, we hired some additional staffing. And then to think now, so many years in, that we have all the staff, all these contractors, all this working, and all these volunteers continue to work in and day out. Very dedicated staff, dedicated individuals that are in this space working for us to achieve our goals within the workforce. So
I don't think a lot of people appreciate how much effort it takes to grow an organization, because you can have an idea all day. That's great. However, it's the execution, and then how do I define growth, and how do I make sure, because all growth isn't good growth, right? Like sometimes you can overextend yourself. So like for your organization to be as large as it currently is in such a relatively short amount of time means that someone sat there, and really talk to their stakeholders and figuring out, how do we grow? How do we mature this? And how do we make sure that we have a everlasting legacy where this, organization can continue to do what it's doing. So if someone were to be in an area, somewhere on the globe that doesn't currently have a chapter, how could they then reach out and kind of build that
their
organization
community,
where they're at?
they could go to our website. They under initiatives, we have professional affiliates and student chapters, and they could go ahead and fill out the form either at that part of the website or email info@, and we will connect them with our either professional affiliate manager or a student chapter manager, and they will get the ball rolling and give them all the information that they need to get started. So that's a really exciting, creative space to be. And it's really showing up in a leadership capacity and how you envision how to drive the change that's needed and gathering your community and bringing it forward. So just last week, I was at the Amazon headquarters in New York. They did a CTF simultaneously in New York, Virginia, and in
Oh, wow.
Washington. And
Okay.
so that was very exciting. But the perk about it is being there with WiCyS members that flew from all around the country to be at that New York location. And then also to be able to then meet the New York Metro affiliate. So we have a bunch
Right.
of industry professionals that are also boots on the ground running their initiatives in that area too. So to be able to meet them at the conference where they were providing outreach and resources to others, it was like seeing the work in action right there,
Right.
in one location. We're incredibly proud of the leaders that really drive this effort in so many areas. And it's a labor of love. Being a nonprofit is a labor of love. And being a volunteer in the leader space is definitely something you have to feel very passionate about to move it forward.
When I talked to Rebecca Skeet, again, COO from Black Girls Hack, she also brought it's you have your 9 to 5, and you also have another full-time job in the organization, and then you have part-time jobs where you're trying to, figure out like, what do we need? How can I provide it? How can I fill in a gap? Because you don't necessarily always have the person you need in the position until you find them, right? That perfect person to slot into whatever that position is. So sometimes you're the stopgap, right? So it definitely is a labor of love, and I commend anyone who works in an organization to that extent. But then the people who are in those executive positions, like I can only imagine, like, because you have your job, you're being cross-utilized is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So
And that's the power of a board. When you have a very committed board, it's also very powerful too. So I'm very fortunate to work under the leadership of the WiCyS board. That's a mature board within the organization that really understands the needs within the community and are women in cybersecurity and working in this space themselves. So that's also very helpful.
And I'm glad you brought up SANS as well and your guys' work with them. So I talked to, I believe it was this year, it might have been late last year, Delisha Hodo. So she's a assistant advisor over at SANS University. So when it comes to WiCyS's work in partnership with SANS, is it more on the academic front, or are you guys also working with them as an employer? Or how's that kind of relationship work out between WiCyS and SANS?
Well, SANS has been a strong supporter of the WiCyS organization well before even becoming a conference. So the late
Okay.
Alan Pauler from SANS Institute, the founder and president, he really was an active part of brainstorming ideas with our founder, Dr. Ambereen Siraj, on what the WiCyS conference and what WiCyS is all about as it grew into going into that nonprofit space. So SANS Institute has been a long time contributor to brainstorming and thinking through various ideas on the WiCyS org. And right now, they're a strong employer partner of ours. So they are a strategic partner. They're a tier 3 strategic partner. And with all our partners, we offer them the opportunity to partner with us on our various programming efforts. So when the pandemic happened in 2020, and I'll never forget, we woke up March 5th, 2020. We're like, you know what? We heard that COVID-19 was in California, but it wasn't going to reach us in Colorado on March 12th. And we thought it's not going to be a problem. March 12th, we're going to hold our conference and everything is going to be fine and we'll just move through it. And that was our thoughts March 5th at 9 o'clock in the morning when we met as an executive committee. And by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, COVID-19 was in Colorado and our conference was no longer viable because of, not being able to bring people into in-person event. So on March 5th, we had to cancel our March 12th event. And it was very heartbreaking. And it made us really reflect on how are we going to support our community that already needed our support, that was already working in silos, that already didn't have the representation that it needed within this space during very unusual COVID times. And because we were able to cancel that conference and 5 weeks later launch a virtual conference that was highly attended and very successful, we've received a lot of attention from that. We got a lot of media attention and companies came to us saying, all right, well, we've made our investments in in-person events. How could we now support WiCyS as you're going into this virtual space, continuing to support more women in cybersecurity and support the workforce in this capacity, Google was one of those partners that came to us. And
Okay.
we started brainstorming what would a security training scholarship look like. And of course, when it came to what kind of certifications, we partnered with our very own partner, SANS Institute. And we built out this tiered program that finds hidden talent, that showcases women that have aptitude, grit, determination, not
Right.
always advancing the individuals that are top of the tier, but advancing individuals that really are striving and so committed to this life-changing experience and really how it would impact them in their lives to be in the
Right.
cybersecurity workforce. And so that's how the program came together. It's tiered. So that way, no matter whenever a woman or a WiCyS member doesn't advance to the next tier, they're walking away with a learning experience that they could continue to build on. And then the final tiered recipients receive advanced SANS certifications and career placement services. And so far, in the past 4 years, everyone that came into the program 15 months later, within 15 months, were in their first cybersecurity job.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we continue to follow these individuals throughout their careers as they have their career advancement. So individuals come in as hairdressers, as musicians, as physical therapists, as teachers. A lot of teachers come into cybersecurity and they come in not thinking that they necessarily have the transferable skills, but they do. They just
Right.
do. And through the way that our security training scholarship is positioned, it gets them into the lucrative careers. And what's interesting is that we now have scholarship recipients from 4 years ago that are now working at Google.
Okay.
The very
Yeah.
first
So
funders.
yeah.
And so it continues to come around full circle. So it's fascinating to be in this space to build out programs that make sense, to see the impact and see all the data that we're doing because of it.
Outstanding. Because I just feel a lot of people feel disheartened, right? Like they want to break in, but they can't, or they've paid for training that doesn't necessarily align with what they want to do. So to see that you guys have that mentorship, allyship, provide them guidance, because a lot of people don't have that guidance. They're just shotgun firing off. Like I want to be in cybersecurity, but they don't know what that means, and then they become burnt out and they kind of leave the field. But I think our greatest strength will be through people who are not IT converts, right? Like I think that's great. Like I'm an IT guy by trade, right? Air Force trained me how to build networks, but I run into, like you said, teachers, lawyers, people who are in the medical profession or billing, and they bring all these transferable skills into cyber. It's just a different perspective, because at the end of the day, like everyone needs cybersecurity. So why not take people from these different fields of expertise and then put the lens of cybersecurity on top of it, saying like, okay, what do you see in this regard that maybe I don't see as, a switch router guy, that you may see because you worked within this field, like musicians and so on and so forth. Like they just bring a very interesting perspective and eye to cyber. And it's good to see that it's working out for WiCyS and its members.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, cybersecurity is an industry. We've done a very good job of making it convoluted and confusing.
Right.
And if you want to be a teacher, there's a very distinct pathway to become a teacher. But with cybersecurity, there's so many various entry points and there's so many transferable skills. And it's not only, technical individuals that come into cybersecurity. So that non-technical piece is really critical and has a lot of career opportunities in that space too. And we could teach the technical. That's why we partner with organizations and like SANS Institute and ISC too, is to be able to teach that technical piece as well. And so that's the point, is to be able to provide so many different diverse opportunities for individuals to enter in and then find their way through it. And we offer aptitude testing. We offer many different areas for individuals to identify their strengths, their weaknesses. What else do they need to build upon so that their career pathway could be very intentional too, and they're not wasting their time, their resources, their money. But what's great about WiCyS is, so far, as a nonprofit, every programming effort that we're able to offer is that we do so, and it's all included within the membership. There's like no additional costs or anything like that. And so we've been able to build this really successful model where we're taking away the financial burden of a lot of this programming efforts and being able to absorb them as a nonprofit and pay it forward as we're building out the workforce. So it's
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's great. And I'm glad that, so to recall something you said earlier, where a lot of people in the organization are problem solvers. They love puzzles and things of that nature. That's definitely something that needs to be more within the field. Because again, I come from, like, I'm not trying to knock IT. I love it. It's where I started. But we have a very specific mindset, or we have a very specific perspective. So it's good to have people from other sections and areas to come in. I remember seeing a picture of Jen Eastern. It was like it's either her portrait for SZA, or it was a character or something like that, but it had a Rubik's Cube as part of her picture. And I'm like, that just makes sense, right? That's the type of person you want to be in charge of that type of organization. Because not only do they not take themselves overly serious, which you'll see in a lot of government pictures and things of that nature, right? Like, see people who just have like the clenched jaw and they want to look real serious and tough in their picture. But also, like, when you're recruiting people, like, you want to have an image that, it calls out to them.
Director Easterly, she came to the WiCyS conference in 2020 when we were in Cleveland, Ohio, and she announced her 50 by 30 initiative. And after she was on our big keynote and made this announcement on our main stage, then she went out in the career fair and recruited from the CISA booth
Oh, that's awesome.
for the
Yeah.
remainder of the day. So accessible, so relatable, so a part of the community. And that's what we see a lot of too, Ryan, is companies say, oh, I want women on my team. I want diverse talent. Nobody's applying for the job. We always come back that if something is not working, then something is broken with that
Right.
system. And it's about meeting your community where your community is at. And WiCyS and other nonprofits that you mentioned earlier, that's about meeting the community where the community is at. And if we really, truly want to drive the workforce to be as diversified as we see you want it to be, then it takes putting forth that effort and moving forward in a different way, not always doing the traditional recruiting ways and just, putting out the same job recs out there without making any adjustments to more inclusive language and
Right.
putting out your wish lists of, everyone having 3 to 5 years and CISSPs and everything
Right. And
else
an entry-level job. Yeah.
for entry-level job. I mean, we hear about it all the time. But Director Easterly is a great example of how she broke down barriers and went out to the community and really drove that. And you could see that she has quite a following and quite a community around her, and she built out a significant workforce because of her contributions and the way that she was committed to, making a difference and how she wanted to build her teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, using your platform to amplify voices, right? So they had the Pass the Mic initiative a couple of years ago, where it was like, we're going to give people within our organization the spotlight, like diverse talent within our organization, to go onto our social media platforms and promote and amplify our message. And I saw a lot of people who didn't necessarily look at the government sector or look at these companies as places they could work, like, flip switch. They're like, oh, okay, I didn't know people who looked like me, who thought like me, were in these organizations. So it's just efforts like that are just really cool, and I'm glad to see that they're taking place, right? Because again, I started the platform because I didn't see a lot of it in the private sector, the public sector, and now you're starting to see a lot more community involvement. And it's just really good to see. I just like, right, 2020 to 2024 has just been a very odd time for the world in general. So what I'm hoping is 25 through, infinity.
It's what I was going to say. Don't put a stop to it. Let's just keep going with the good, positive vibes.
Right, exactly. I'm hoping things just take off is what I'm hoping for, and continuous efforts. Because again, like you said, women within cybersecurity, 25%, right? So just once those numbers continue to grow. In my case, when I looked at demographics, I think it was people of color in cybersecurity, when I started looking, was like 9%. I think it's like 13% now. So there's been some growth, slow growth, but there's been some growth, right? But again, I like to see proportionality. Like, let's get those things closer to actual representation of our workforce. It's great to see. So I'm going to make a hard pivot because we're having such a good conversation. But I'd be remiss before I let you go. I always like to land the plane on, what are you doing outside of your efforts, right? Like, you're super busy, right? You have a very important job within WiCyS. But what are you doing for you? Like, what are you doing for relaxation? What are you doing for your time off if you have any? The precious moments. Like, what are you doing to unwind?
So, well, my favorite thing to unwind is go hiking in the woods. That's
Okay.
definitely my favorite. So, I have a dog that keeps me very busy. She's feistless, so they need to be out there running.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I
Gotcha.
always feel like I need to set her free in the woods and let her get her time to actually be a dog. And it brings me incredible joy to see her just living her finest life. So Nellie and I always enjoy going out there. But other than that, I really love reading. I enjoy bluegrass music. As you
Okay.
can see, I have some instruments in the
That's
background
cool.
there.
Yeah.
So seeing live music, any live music really just fills my heart up. And of course, spending time with the family and friends. I try to do that as much as possible, shut down my brain from work and to be able
Right.
to enjoy the present moment is always good. I'm trying to get better at it though.
Yeah.
We always need
We
to
all
know
have
work
issues.
in progress.
Yeah, actually taking the time to be in the moment. I think that's hard for like the world in general, but I think it's really hard for people in IT and cyber just because of the nature of having to think 3, 4 steps ahead of the adversary, right? You're always thinking like, what can I do? What needs to be done? And I'm sure it's in every career field, but for me specifically, right? Like it's just like, how do I turn off my brain so I could be there with my family, be present? In your case, that's cool that you like live events and music. So I know the pandemic had to be rough during that time.
We were watching concerts on our TV.
Right.
It's like, just to get our fill of that live music, yes. And so that was it. That was rough for me during the pandemic. And then also, I always really liked spending my mornings on Saturday. I would go and I would work from a coffee shop,
Okay.
just in my zone. And that was really hard during the pandemic too, just to be working in various places where you're on the outskirts of people's conversations, but life was going on around you. And it kind of helped me to zone in and be creative and enjoy what I was doing. And so when the pandemic hit, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to spend all this time in this house. But, hey, it made me redecorate my office.
I built a mug holder, like some shelves. I
Yeah.
built a bookcase, right? So before I let you go, one book recommendation and one song or a EP or whatever track.
Oh, gosh. Well, my book recommendation will always land on Crucial Conversations. I think it's a game changer for no matter where you're at in any career. It's really important to be able to go into conversations ready for progress to be made to ensure that the space is created of trust and that you have confidence in that it's a collaborative, safe space to really, make some changes. And so Crucial Conversations is essentially a toolkit for me that I reread every single year. And I just got done rereading that with the senior leaders within the WiCyS organization. We had our own little internal book club with that. So that's
That's awesome.
wonderful. And right now, I am one of those people, Ryan, that is listening to Christmas music, I have to admit,
Oh, it's not
before
time yet.
Thanksgiving. I know. I know. I'm highly criticized by a lot of people. But to my defense, I have read also that people that decorate early and listen to Christmas music earlier are happier in life. So I'm going to go with
I
that.
bet. I bet. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I do have some playing, but it's for my nieces. Like they're super excited. So when they're in the car, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna play Kids Bop Kids Christmas songs, and
Yes,
they love it. But in my heart of hearts, I know it's just a little too early.
I know. I know. I don't put up a Christmas tree before Thanksgiving. I keep Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But the Christmas music definitely is playing, and I am very excited to get just right into that Christmas cheer. So, and all the holiday cheer. I just love the time with the family and making everyone happy and bringing everyone together and eating
Yeah,
good food
that's awesome. Yeah.
and having some time off. That's very important, enjoying the time off with everyone.
So I am also looking forward to that time of year. But thank you so much, Lynn. I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on and really highlighting what WiCyS is doing within the community, all those great initiatives. And I can't wait to see what the future holds, right? Like you said, you guys have been doing this since 2018. Am I
Yeah, as
correct?
a nonprofit since
2018.
2018. Yeah.
And you're making humongous strides, and I see your efforts everywhere, right? So I'm so glad to have you on the show, and I can't wait to hopefully have you on it again sooner rather than later to talk about all those other great efforts as they start to bubble up to the top, right? The 5-year plan. So I know you guys have a lot of great stuff coming up.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you so much for having me today to help amplify the WiCyS message and really continue to share what our organization and other organizations are all about and our purpose in the workforce. I really appreciate our time here together.
Absolutely. So you can definitely continue to tune into the episodes and the shows. We're Monday through Friday, right? Monday, Tuesday, our topics. Wednesday's discussion. Thursdays, Ask a CISSP, just like this one. Fridays, everything else, movies, books, games, all that good stuff. You can find me on most social media platforms under RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. My bread and butter is LinkedIn, so please reach out to me there if you want a quicker response. And where can they find you, Lynn?
They could find me on LinkedIn, Lynn Dohm, and you could also find WiCyS on LinkedIn, and then head on over to the WiCyS website. It's WiCYS.org.
Perfect. All right. Stay safe. Stay secure.
Thank you.